A developing tropical low off the Western Australian coast, severe thunderstorm potential across Queensland, multiple weather systems converging, that S what we're really looking at over the coming days. I've examined the latest from the Bureau of Meteorology, cross-referenced the Access model with the European and GFS models, and there is some significant weather developing that deserves your attention. Not panic. Attention, let's start with what is happening right now because the current conditions tell us a lot about where this is heading. Across southeast Queensland, conditions have been uncomfortable. Brisbane and surrounding areas hit the mid to high 30s yesterday and today, with humidity making it feel even worse. That warm, sticky air mass has been parked over the region all week. If you're in Ipswich, you know exactly what I am talking about. The heat's been next level. Meanwhile, up in far north Queensland around Innisfail, conditions have been near perfect the past couple of days. Wednesday and Thursday brought clear skies and pleasant temperatures. That is the calm before things potentially change. The Gold Coast has seen beautiful weather lately, but that pattern's shifting. For those wondering about storm season on the coast, we're not done yet. More on that shortly. Compare all that to what S developing further west and north, and you start to see why the Bureau is paying close attention. Now, the main story here involves two separate systems, and understanding how they might interact is critical to getting this forecast right. First, the tropical low developing off Western Australia S northwest coast. The Bureau has identified an area of low pressure in the Indian Ocean, roughly 500 kilometres northwest of Broome. Sea surface temperatures in that region are sitting at 28 to 29 degrees Celsius. That S warm enough to support tropical development. The current pressure reading is 1,006 hectopascals. Not particularly low yet, but it's the trend that matters. Over the past 24 hours, that pressure has dropped 3 hectopascals. That's gradual intensification. The Access model, which is the Bureau S primary forecasting tool, shows this system tracking southeast toward the Pilbara coast over the next 72 to 96 hours. The European model agrees on the general track but has it moving slightly faster. The GFS model is a bit more aggressive with intensification. Here is what we know with reasonable confidence: this system will continue to develop. The question isn't to whether it strengthens, but how much and how quickly. If conditions remain favourable, and right now they are, we're looking at potential tropical cyclone development by Sunday or Monday. The area it S tracking toward around Cape Leveque and the Dampier Peninsula is relatively remote. Population density is low, but for those who live in the region or have interests there, this needs to be on your radar. Wind shear is currently moderate, sitting around 15 to 20 knots. That S not ideal for rapid intensification, but it is not prohibitive either. As the system moves closer to the coast, that shear is forecast to decrease. Lower shear means the system can organise more effectively. By Monday, if the models are correct, we could be looking at a Category 1 or Category 2 cyclone making landfall somewhere between Broome and Port Hedland. Sustained winds of 90 to 120 kilometres per hour, with gusts potentially reaching 150 to 170 kilometres per hour. The storm surge is another consideration. A Category 2 system can produce surge heights of 1 to 2 metres above normal high tide. For low-lying coastal areas, that S, significant, not catastrophic, but significant rainfall will be the other major impact. These systems can dump tremendous amounts of rain in a short period. We're relooking at potential totals of 150 to 300 millimetres across the Pilbara and Kimberley regions between Sunday and Wednesday. Some isolated areas could see higher amounts if the system stalls. For perspective, that S, similar to what Cyclone Veronica produced back in 2019. Veronica was a Category 3 system that impacted the same general region. Widespread flooding, road closures, infrastructure damage. It took weeks to clean up. This system won to necessarily reach Category 3 intensity, but the comparison is relevant for understanding potential impacts. Now, that S Western Australia. Let S shift focus to Queensland because their S, a completely separate weather pattern developing that has nothing to do with the tropical low out west. Right across Queensland from the southeast, up through the central coast and into the far north, we're dealing with an unstable air mass. Temperatures in the mid to high 30s, dew points in the low to mid 20s. That's a recipe for severe thunderstorms. The Bureau has issued a severe thunderstorm outlook for large parts of the state. That includes Brisbane, the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Wide Bay, and extending north into central Queensland. What makes a thunderstorm severe? 3 main factors: heavy rainfall leading to flash flooding, damaging wind gusts exceeding 90 kilometres per hour, and large hail. All three are possible with the storms developing over the next 2 to 3 days. The trigger mechanism is a surface trough extending from the Gulf of Carpentaria down through Western Queensland. That trough is providing lift. Combine that with the heat and moisture already in place, and you've got the ingredients. This afternoon and tonight, storms are most likely across the southeast, Brisbane, Ipswich, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast. These 1 TB garden variety afternoon thunderstorms. We're talking about potentially severe cells with rapid development. If you saw dark clouds this afternoon that blew away, that is not unusual. Storms can develop and dissipate quickly in these conditions, but when they do organise, they can produce significant rainfall in a short time. 50 to 100 millimetres in an hour is possible with the stronger cells. For context, East Aspley in Brisbane has recorded only 11 millimetres for the entire month of January. One severe thunderstorm could deliver more rain in an hour than the suburbs seen all month. That is the kind of variability we're dealing with. The flash flooding risk is real. Urban areas with poor drainage will see water accumulate quickly. If you're in a flood-prone area and you've been through this before, you know what to do. Clear your gutters, make sure drains aren't blocked, move vehicles to higher ground if necessary. Tomorrow, Friday, the severe weather risk continues. The focus shifts slightly north into central Queensland, but the southeast isn't out of the woods. Additional storms are likely. By Saturday, the trough begins to weaken and the severe weather risk decreases. That doesn't mean no storms, just lower probability of severe storms. Now, I want to address something important. Some of you have lived through significant weather events. Cyclone Tracy, Ash Wednesday, the 2011 Queensland floods, Black Summer. You've seen what real severe weather looks like, and you're rightfully sceptical when the media sensationalises every weather system. This situation isn't Tracy, it isn't Yasi. The tropical low off Western Australia, even if it reaches cyclone intensity, will be a Category 1 or 2 system affecting a relatively remote area. The Queensland thunderstorms, while potentially severe, are typical of this time of year, but typical doesn't mean ignore them. Preparation is about being ready for what S likely, not just what S extreme. Let me walk through some specific regional impacts and what you should be thinking about. Western Australia, particularly the Pilbara and Kimberley. If you're in Broome, Port Hedland, Karratha, or surrounding areas, you've dealt with cyclones before, you know the drill, but it's worth going through the checklist. Secure loose items around your property, outdoor furniture, tools, anything that can become a projectile in strong winds. Trim tree branches that overhang structures, check your emergency supplies, water, non-perishable food, batteries, torch, first aid kit. If you have a generator, make sure it is fueled and operational. If you are in a caravan or temporary structure, now is the time to relocate to more solid shelter. Category 2 winds can destroy caravans. For those with livestock, ensure they have access to shelter and water. Cyclones can contaminate water sources, so having backup is essential. Stay informed. Monitor the Bureau of Meteorology website and local emergency services. Cyclone warnings will be updated regularly as the system develops. Wait until the last minute to prepare. Queensland from the southeast through to the far north. Severe thunderstorms over the next 48 hours mean you need to think about flash flooding, damaging winds and large hail. If you are in Brisbane, the Gold Coast or any urban area with known drainage issues, be prepared for localised flooding. If it's flooded, forget it. Never drive through floodwater. It only takes 60 centimetres of water to float a vehicle. For those in rural areas, heavy rain can make roads impassable quickly. If you need to travel, check conditions before you leave and have a backup plan. Large hail is a concern for vehicles and property. If storms are approaching and you have the option to park undercover, do it. The 1999 Sydney hailstorm caused $1.7 billion in damage. Baseball-sized hail destroyed vehicles, shattered windows, damaged roofs. Queensland storms can produce similar hail under the right conditions. Damaging winds are another risk. Winds exceeding 90 kilometres per hour can bring down trees and power lines. If you lose power, which is possible with severe storms, have a plan. Charge your devices, fill containers with water. If you have critical medical equipment that requires power, make arrangements. Far north Queensland around Innisfail and Cairns, you've had pleasant weather lately, but there is rain potential this weekend. Not severe weather, just typical wet season activity. Scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms, nothing to worry about, but if you've got outdoor plans, have a backup. Now, let's talk about the broader pattern because these individual systems are part of a larger meteorological setup. Australia is currently influenced by a weak El Niño pattern that is transitioning toward neutral conditions. That transition affects weather patterns across the continent. In Western Australia, the tropical low development is being steered by an upper-level trough over the Indian Ocean. That trough is providing the necessary atmospheric dynamics for the system to organise. In Queensland, the instability is being driven by a combination of surface heating, high moisture content, and lifting mechanisms from the inland trough. As that trough moves east, it's dragging tropical moisture down from the Coral Sea. The Indian Ocean dipole is currently neutral, which means we're not seeing the strong feedback that can enhance or suppress rainfall across different parts of the country. What this all means is that the weather systems we are seeing are fairly typical for late January. Tropical cyclone season runs from November through April, with peak activity in February and March. We're right in the middle of it. Severe thunderstorms are common across Queensland during the wet season. The heat, moisture and instability create ideal conditions. The key is not to become complacent just because it's typical. Typical weather can still be dangerous if you're unprepared. Looking ahead beyond this weekend, the pattern remains active. The tropical low, assuming it develops into a cyclone and makes landfall, will likely weaken quickly once it moves inland. But the moisture it draws in could produce flooding rains across inland Western Australia and possibly into the Northern Territory. For Queensland, once the current unstable period passes, we're looking at a return to more typical wet season conditions, afternoon storms, high humidity, warm temperatures. There's no indication of another major system developing in the Coral Sea over the next week to 10 days, but that can change. During cyclone season, you need to stay informed. One question I've seen is about intensity. Could this Western Australian system undergo rapid intensification? It's possible, but based on current conditions, it's not likely. Rapid intensification is defined as a pressure drop of 42 hectopascals or more in 24 hours. That typically requires very warm water, low wind shear, and favourable atmospheric conditions. While the water is warm enough, the shear is marginal and the atmospheric setup isn't optimal for explosive development. A more gradual strengthening to Category 1 or 2 is the most probable scenario. But I'm not ruling out Category 3. The models have uncertainty and conditions can change. For those interested in the technical details, the current sea surface temperature analysis shows a pool of 28 to 29 degree water extending from northwest of Broome across toward the Timor Sea. The system is currently sitting right over that warm pool. The wind shear analysis from the latest GFS run shows 15 to 20 knots from the west-southwest. That S creating some disruption to the system S circulation, which is why it's not intensifying rapidly. As the system moves southeast, it will encounter slightly cooler water near the coast, around 27 to 28 degrees. That S still warm enough to maintain intensity, but not ideal for strengthening. The track forecast has the system making landfall somewhere between Broome and Port Hedland, most likely near the Dampier Peninsula. After landfall, it will weaken quickly as it loses its oceanic heat source. The rainfall forecast shows the heaviest totals along and just inland from the coast, 150 to 300 millimetres over a 3 to 4 day period. That is significant but not record-breaking. For comparison, Cyclone Veronica in 2019 produced over 400 millimetres in some areas. Cyclone Olwen in 2015 produced similar totals to what we're forecasting now. The key message here is that this system deserves attention and preparation, but it's not an extreme event based on current projections. In Queensland, the thunderstorm outlook for tonight and tomorrow shows the highest probability across the southeast. The Storm Prediction Centre, which is part of the Bureau, has issued a moderate risk for severe thunderstorms. That means severe storms are likely, not possible. Likely, the main threats are flash flooding and damaging winds. Large hail is possible, but less likely with this particular setup. The atmosphere has plenty of moisture and instability, but only moderate wind shear. That favours heavy rain and strong outflow winds rather than supercells with large hail. Rainfall rates of 50 to 100 millimetres per hour are forecast with the strongest storms. In urban areas, that overwhelms drainage systems. In rural areas, it can cause rapid creek rises. If you're in a thunderstorm warning area, take it seriously. Move indoors. Stay away from windows. Unplug sensitive electronics. If you are on the road and a severe storm hits, pull over and wait it out. Now, I want to circle back to something I mentioned earlier about the Gold Coast storm season. For those wondering if it's over, the answer is no. We're in the peak of the wet season. Storm activity will continue through February and into March. What you are seeing now with the severe thunderstorm potential is typical. Some years are more active than others, but January and February are prime months for severe weather across southeast Queensland. The pattern we're in now, with heat, humidity and instability, is likely to persist for at least another few weeks. That means ongoing potential for afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Not every day will see severe weather, but the ingredients are in place often enough that you need to stay weather aware. For those travelling around the country, particularly in northern and western regions, factor weather into your planning. Roads can become impassable quickly during heavy rain. Remote areas may not have immediate assistance available if you get into trouble. If you're reheading into cyclone-affected areas in Western Australia early next week, reconsider your timing. Wait until the system has passed and conditions have cleared. In Queensland, if you've got outdoor activities planned this weekend, have a backup plan. Storms can develop quickly, and while they may not be severe everywhere, the risk is there. Before I wrap up, let me summarise the key points. Western Australia, tropical low developing off the northwest coast. Potential cyclone development by Sunday or Monday. Track toward the Pilbara coast between Broome and Port Hedland. Category 1 or 2 intensity most likely. Prepare now if you are in the region. Queensland, severe thunderstorm potential across the southeast and central coast over the next 48 hours. Heavy rainfall, flash flooding, damaging winds are the main threats. Stay informed and be ready to take shelter. This is a developing situation. The models will update. The Bureau will issue warnings as necessary. Your job is to stay informed and be prepared. Check the Bureau of Meteorology website regularly. Follow your local emergency services on social media. Have your emergency kit ready. Know your plan. And for those of you who've been through significant weather events before, your experience is valuable. Check on your mates, particularly elderly neighbours or those in vulnerable situations. Community, looking out for community, is what gets us through these events. The weather across Australia is never boring, and right now we've got multiple systems to watch. Stay safe, stay informed, and don't take unnecessary risks. That's the forecast. I'll continue monitoring these systems and provide updates